Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to my lair. Here we are. Did you know that there's tobacco hanging over me right now? You can't see it, but it's up there. Anyway, sometime I'll tell you all about my tobacco. I'm really excited about it, and I need to harvest again here soon. So, I'm not here to talk to you about tobacco. In fact, I'm super duper excited about All Quiet on the Western Front. I watched the official trailer on YouTube today, um, which said the trailer came out today, the 20th. I'm recording this on the 20th, so um, I've seen the teaser trailer. Um, I don't know. Am I just behind the times? Because they say that the actual movie on Netflix comes out on the 28th. I feel like releasing the trailer only a week before the film comes out is a little odd. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just not getting it. Anyway, here's what I've got to say about this, and this is the one thing that I want to do because I want to kind of talk up how excited I am about this, but I also want to rag on the Rings of Power a little bit because I'm just not over it yet, and I don't know that any of you are either because it's a pretty popular thing. So I'm going to join that bandwagon. And here's what I have to say. Uh, Amazon honestly ought to have hired the creators of All Quiet on the Western Front for the Rings of Power because from the previews, it looks like All Quiet gets everything right that Rings of Power gets wrong. You might be asking yourself, well, how can I compare the two? One is a fantasy, the other is a historical fiction. Well, I think there's actually a lot more similarities between those two stories than you may think. And certainly for the purposes of seeing what the creators did right and wrong, I think the comparison, is very applicable. Plus, I haven't watched either of them, so I feel perfectly safe making judgments about them. Now, the first thing that I want to mention about these films is the role of diversity. Now, Rings of Power has lots of it, and it's in your face. And what sucks is that Amazon has actually used that diversity to essentially brand everyone who doesn't like their series as a racist. And honestly, I must be the worst of them all because I'm not even giving their show a chance. All Quiet on the Western Front, however, has almost no diversity. In the preview, they were all white men. Every single one of them. None of them was obviously homosexual. Um, I guess the most diverse thing is that there were Germans and there were French, and so we get those two cultures. But that's about all you get really for diversity. Um, and here's the thing about that, right? Essentially, what the makers of All Quiet on the Western Front have done is now they have to either make a good film or accept the fact that they're going to get bad criticism. Because they at least can't hide behind that wall of racism and say that any critic of their show is this, patently evil hatred of or hater of diversity. And by the way, just so that we're all clear here, All Quiet could be made just as diverse as the Rings of Power. In fact, there's the potential to be even more diverse than the Rings of Power, with even more representation. Because think about this for a second. World War One does offer the possibility of different races, with different disabilities, with different sexual orientations, different genders, different gender presentations. The possibilities are endless here, right? If you think about it for just a second. The creators of the Rings of Power argue that there's nothing in Tolkien that says that Galadriel wasn't a whiny, Karen, self-centered, unstoppable warrior. Technically, they're right. I don't think that Tolkien ever actually specifically said that she wasn't this annoying character. Similarly, there's nothing in All Quiet on the Western Front that specifically says that Balmer wasn't a biological female that transitioned to a man. In fact, now that I think about it, does Remark ever actually specify that Balmer is even white? So I think that's a good segue into my second point, and that's that All Quiet appears to be faithful to the source material, whereas Rings of Power clearly isn't, at all. And I'm only going off the previews, but from the previews, and I guess the criticisms that I get from Nerdrotic, because I think he's funny. Um, you know, when we look at well, let me do All Quiet on the Western Front first. When you look at All Quiet on the Western Front, you get this sense of being immersed in an actual faithful adaptation of the literature. Remarque is quoted in some of the teaser trailers. I mean, honestly, why the heck wouldn't he be? I mean, it's hard to tell from the scenes if any of them are going to be like perfect copies of the scenes in the book, but nothing looked incredibly off, and that's encouraging. Um, I mean, when we look at the previews and the scenes and things like that, and I guess you can just watch the series if you want to, with the Rings of Power. I mean, Galadriel is way off. The Harfoots are way off. Diverse beardless female dwarves are just odd, and I mean, you have the dumbest looking elves ever. Um, I'll stop. I think one thing that this points to is that Netflix, in this instance, is showing respect for the fan base. Um, I think that's cool. I don't think that All Quiet on the Western Front has quite as big as a fan base as or as devoted a fan base for that matter as Lord of the Rings does, but even so, it's really refreshing to actually see creators actually trying to capture the essence of a story instead of just cramming social programming down our throats. I don't think that a fantasy film needs to reflect the world of today. Or I guess I should say at least Hollywood producers' distorted view of what they think the world ought to be. And I think All Quiet might be a good lesson that one doesn't need to sink $1 billion into something and then drown the world in advertising and then pander to every single political catchword of the time. Maybe all you need to do is to have a good story and take the time to build it well and film it well. Make a good show. And that gets me to my last point. All Quiet on the Western Front just plain looks good. I mean, it looks like it's going to be stunning and breathtaking and cool and excellent. I mean, the way that it's shot looks good. And let's get one thing straight. Even from the previews and the few little clips that I've seen of Rings of Power looks dumb. Now, maybe it's out of context, but things like a 90-pound girl giving stabbing instructions to soldiers in like a really dumb way, right? Stab, twist, cut. It just looks dumb. It really does. I mean, the shots of the action scenes that I've seen, again, maybe I'm taking them out of context, but they just look really stupid. And by the way, just to be fair here, I would actually level that same accusation, criticism perhaps, of how they had Legolas fight in Peter Jackson's The Two Towers and The Return of the King. I mean, it looked stupid for Legolas to go shield surfing and like defying physics on an elephant and stuff. It looked dumb. And that's like all they have, or at least that's all I've seen in the Rings of Power. And again, maybe it's out of context, but yeah, all of those fight scenes in Ring of Power, they're that same sort of like ridiculous bad kung fu movie action. And it's sad because you get another movie like All Quiet on the Western Front that just looks awesome. I mean, it looks terrifying. There are scenes just from a preview that actually are unsettling. And it looks like it will capture some of the horror and intense strain put on these soldiers. Even from the previews, the acting looks very, very well done. You see the eagerness, the anticipation, the disenchantment, the surprise, the horror, the shell shock, and everything. I mean, it just looks like it's very, very well done. And yeah, compare that to Rings of Power, and Rings of Power essentially it looks like it's just made for TV quality. So what's the cash value of all this? Well, I'm very excited for All Quiet on the Western Front. It's coming out the 28th, so we've got a week before it gets here. I'll be watching it on day one. I'm all set to watch it with my homie on the 28th. He has a Netflix account. I don't. And so on the 28th, when it releases for all of us peasants, I'll be watching that with him at his place. We tried to think up some good World War I inspired cocktails that we could drink while watching the film, but the best the internet came up with was the sidecar. So I don't know. I thought maybe rum and cheese. I don't know. If you know a good one, good cocktail that we could imbibe while enjoying a good World War I film, let me know in the comments, and that way we'll do that. And on that note, I'll end it there. I'll wish you all joy in your lives, and I'll hope to see you again soon. By the way, I don't actually have any affiliation with University of Alabama. I had a student who went there, and I said, bring me back a t-shirt, and he did. So there we go. Roll Tide.